Hello class and welcome to this Beetlejuice NES walkthrough right here on Video Games 101 by way of Let's Play with Brigands. I'm your instructor, Professor Brigands, and I'll be straight with you class. We were going to air this one in October when we historically do classes on scary games. Scary being in quotes, very loose definition of scary, but obviously this game would fit the mold. And then I found out that, not to date this class, I hate to do that, but they were about to release a sequel to the 1988 Beetlejuice movie, and I decided we gotta push this one up. So here we are, Beetlejuice for the NES, and a lot of things I could say about this game, not a whole lot of them flattering. In terms of difficulty, well, this game is extremely challenging. Probably the worst thing about the game in general is the fact that the screen only scrolls up or down when you're standing on solid ground. So, for instance, if there's a set of descending platforms, you need to take them one by one to slowly scroll the screen down with you, rather than just jumping to where you know that that bottom platform is, as you'd lose a life by dropping off the screen in this case. Double Dragon 3 was guilty of this in a couple small spots, but nowhere near to the degree of this game, which is predominantly a platformer. It's a cheap way to manufacture difficulty, which admittedly just feels like sloppy design as you play it. Without it, this game would probably be a 6, maybe even a 5, not to mention more fun to play. But with it, in terms of difficulty, I'm going to give Beetlejuice for the NES a 9 out of 10. On the frustration scale, this equates to writhing on the floor, cursing in tongues, maybe calling Beetlejuice's name 3 times and then instantly regretting it, which incidentally might be how you feel as soon as you open this game to play it, but fear not, we've got a number of tips lined up, got all my TAs standing by to keep your writhing on the floor at a minimum. Gary's got your boss beaters, Blaze has information on all of the different items slash kind of secondary weapons, if you will, of this game, and Fluff has some interesting facts to share with us as well, so let's run the intro and get into this Beetlejuice NES walkthrough right here on Video Games 101. Alright, it's showtime, so let's take a look at the controls for Beetlejuice. You can jump with A, you can jump on some enemies' heads to destroy them, but very few. Attack with B, which just means stamping your foot down on certain enemies. If you get scares, which are your secondary weapon upgrades, you can fire different attacks with B with that. But I want to draw attention to this first part, as these beams will kill you if they touch you, so just time it right. It's not too difficult as long as you move in a timely fashion right there. Hit that switch to turn them off, and then ride this cloud up to the second level here. Once again, avoid the rainbow beams firing out there, as that's an instant death. It's just a strange game, you'll discover. As you would imagine, like, oh yeah, Beetlejuice, it's a weird game, it's gonna be weird. It's just designed kind of weird. A lot of nonsensical things, which I guess they can get away with because it is Beetlejuice, but take a quick look at the Briggs notes for this Beetlejuice NES walkthrough. The keys to beating this game, mention it in the opening. Let that screen scroll vertically before you make a jump. Stock up on help vouchers and scares, which you can do at the little Beetle stops and the shops respectively, and use the health trick, which Blaze is going to talk about in just a second. But yeah, just hit B on these beetles, you get some points you can pop in to take on a more difficult enemy for more points, but anyway, Blaze. Alright, beetles are very important in the world of Beetlejuice. Not only can you step on one to get all your health back on demand, but you also get help vouchers, depending on which color of beetle you squish. So red, you get 10, blue 25, green 50. The color could be a little, depending on the level, but then the yellows are the most valuable at 75. Also give you the hardest time. They are jumping around, difficult to step on sometimes, but there's no limit to how many beetles will pop out, so you can stock up on help vouchers early on and purchase all the scares that you need. Sometimes you'll also find a rare one-up
on the screens. You can also buy these at the shops for $12.50, but every now and then you'll find one of these, as the professor will point out.
Good call, Blaze. Grab yourself a few skeletons. This will be our attack for this first boss right here. Then hit start, and then cycle through until you get the skeleton one right there and use it. And hit this beehive just once with that. And then grab a Birdman too, and then quickly jump on this cloud immediately. And jump up here to grab yourself an extra life. It's kind of tricky. I almost don't recommend getting it because you have to jump so quickly off that cloud. Not just to make the jump, but actually so that it's still high enough so you can come back down without worrying about that screen scrolling you to death, essentially, or not scrolling, so causing you death. But anyway, equip your skeleton scare again, take out this beehive, and then go through this door on the right, and we're going to bring in Gary for our first boss.
It's Scary Gary's Boss Beater.
Alright, the first boss in Beetlejuice Bug Spray Guy. Jump over that initial spray, and then be aggressive. Get 3 to 4 shots in, and then anticipate and jump over that next spray. You can generally take him down after that second spray if you're aggressive enough. Remember, the only way to beat him is to knock him into that right wall, so keep firing, keep knocking him back, and you'll take him down.
Good call, Gary. Thank you very much. Yeah, watch out for these bugs. They will knock you into the water, and of course, Beetlejuice cannot swim. And now, with an overview on these different scares we can purchase here in the shop with our vouchers, let's go back to Blaze.
Alright, let's talk about the scares you can purchase with those help vouchers in Beetlejuice. Note that anytime you lose one of these heads, these scares, you will get all your health back, which is why the Medusa is so important to stock up on. For 100 help vouchers, you get one shot and it disappears, so don't use the shot, just use this whenever you're low on health. Pop this on. This will freeze some enemies, but that's, again, not the point. Just want to have this for a cheap alternative, or solution, I should say, alternative to the more expensive ones, so that you could pop this on when you're low on health, take a hit, and get all of your health back on demand without having to worry about beetles. Next, we have Birdman, which does have a use in that you can jump twice as high or even higher. For 150, you get 2 shots. Same idea with the health, but again, the main thing is about that jumping height, which can be used to access a few rare locations in this game. We have 2-headed for 200. This gets you 3 shots, which you can use on certain bosses. Gives you that second head, purely aesthetic, pretty much from here on out. The skeleton, we have an exception. The beast can't sting you when you have this, when you have no skin, but for 250, you get 5 shots. You can see the value of the ratio of shots versus the cost gets a little bit better the more you spend. Kind of like buying a value meal when you're out at a fast food restaurant. Spend a little more and you get a lot more. So the umbrella head for 400, you get 9 shots, so more than 50 per shot at this point, or less than 50, I should say. The ogre is probably the best all-around scare in this game. For 500, you get 12 shots. It's pretty affordable in the grand scheme of things versus some of these other scares, like the Snake Man for 750. Gets you the best ratio probably with 19 shots, and then the Ghost 600 for 15, but again, that ogre's kind of in that sweet spot. But more than that, the ogre is probably the most predominant and ubiquitous of all the scares you'll find in this game, so easy to find. You just gotta make sure you have the help vouchers to afford it, but stock up on ogres to take down a lot of the bosses in this game, as Gary will mention.
Good call, Blaze. Yeah, those ogres are good value for money and pretty readily available too in most of the shops, as you mentioned. I mentioned earlier how you can hold down and press A to drop into the holes that you see, and you can take out the special enemies that you don't normally see on the overworld to get a decent chunk in terms of help vouchers. It's just not worth it in my opinion. The risk versus the reward isn't worth it. You can easily get knocked into a pit. Much safer to just step on the beetles outside of the holes, so just wanted to mention that. And while we're stocking up, let's throw it to Fluff for our first Fluff fact about Beetlejuice.
1991's Beetlejuice for the NES is yet another game published by the licensing factory that was LJN in the late 80s and early 90s. As always, LJN outsourced the developmental duties of the game itself to another company, in this case, occasional partner Rare. UK-based Rare was one of Nintendo's biggest bedfellows of the 90s, and looking at Rare's credits list for Nintendo systems in the late 80s to early and mid-90s, you can easily make the argument that they're one of the best developers for Nintendo games not named Nintendo themselves. This isn't the case with Beetlejuice, which generally has the reputation of being a jumbled mess. This is despite previous successful collaborations between LJN and Rare, like 1989's Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yes, that was a much better game, I would say, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Not without its own warts here and there, but it's interesting design, and I enjoyed that one. We did a class on that game in the past. Check that out via the link in the description to every single class we've ever done. We can stock up on a few more before this boss, who's coming up right here. Kind of a rehash of who we just fought, but for more detail, let's throw it back to our resident boss expert, Gary.
Boss beaters.
Right, the lazily included football player in a Beetlejuice game for some reason. Basically, it's the same strategy as the bug spray guy to swap out a football for that bug spray and jump over that football, get those shots in, knock him against the wall, take him down.
Yeah, I guess there was that one scene with some football players in that movie, but still a very lame boss. Thank you very much, Gary. So you can see there are hidden bottles of poison in a lot of these cases here. There's also sometimes some hidden items which can hurt you, so we'll be avoiding those and just showing you the ones that you can actually pick up. Sometimes there's keys hidden away, like right here, which need to open certain doors. We can throw that bottle with the B button, have it bounce around the screen, as you'll see in a second, but in some ways these sort of top-down view levels are the most frustrating and challenging in the game. Not so much right here, as these spiders have very predictable movesets, but again, getting a few more bottles, which is good to stock up on these because we'll need them to deal with some enemies coming up. Every now and then you'll get these areas where the screen is moving, sometimes faster. This isn't too bad. If that door touches you, it sends you to Saturn, sort of that void, where the sandworm is waiting to give you an impromptu boss battle. Yeah, throw your bottles here and just let them bounce around and hit these enemies. Can't actually move on to the next screen until we take down all these enemies. You can see they drop some beetles so you can get some health back right there. You see, every time we take some damage, you can get hit 3 times before you die, unless you top off your health with some beetles like Blaze mentioned earlier. But every time you get hit, they call that the equivalent of someone saying Beetlejuice. So get hit 3 times, it's like them saying it 3 times, and you lose a life. So that's sort of how they shoehorned that particular mechanic from the movie into this game right here. So she wants her book. We already got it. You can't get it until you take out those enemies. So now we have it, and that door opens. We can give that to her. These are little warp areas right here. Stop in here just so we can loot this particular room, get this key. Get 3 more bottles right here. Again, we just want to stock up on as many of these as possible. Now we got that key, so let's continue on here. And now we got the hammer we can pick up. The hammer's an interesting weapon. It just keeps bouncing back and forth, so a bit more precise in terms of getting it to hit where we want it. And then you gotta hit select to pick it back up again. It's moving awful fast, so it can be a little bit tricky. Gotta clear out all these enemies first. Kind of lure some enemies up to where the hammer's already going around, or you can pick it up and take it back. You want to avoid that door, though, at all costs. There's no incentive to going to Saturn. Take the right opening right here. Now you can see the screen is moving with a bit more urgency, so take the right path. Stock up on some more bottles just by walking into them, and then go into the next area here. Music's alright, I have to say. And actually, with some information on that while we're walking through this area, let's throw it back to Fluff for another Fluff fact about this game.
Beetlejuice may be one of Rare's rare, no pun intended, missteps during their NES era, but one area which still holds up is the soundtrack. While Buttercake covered a lot of facts and background about Beetlejuice's developer Rare in our class on Battletoads, I'm going to give some love to Rare's once-upon-a-time longtime composer David Wise. Wise was working in a music shop in the mid-'80s in his and Rare's home country of England. He was demonstrating the Yamaha CX5 music computer to Rare's pair of brother founders, Tim and Chris Stamper, using music he had written and programmed into the demo when the brothers offered him a job on the spot. Acting as Rare's sole composer until 1994, Wise was a busy man in the late 80s and early 90s, composing the soundtracks for nearly 20 games in 1990 alone. Wise's work has always been pretty consistent, peaking with his universally acclaimed work on the Super Nintendo Donkey Kong Country trilogy. In 2009, Wise left Rare and formed his own personal studio, though he's still banked over a dozen credits since then, including Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for Retro Studios after being contacted by their president, Michael Kelbaugh, who had previously also worked at Rare. In addition to successfully reviving the Donkey Kong Country series with Tropical Freeze, we also mentioned Retro Studios recently as being the company which revived the Metroid series in the early 2000s with their critically acclaimed Metroid Prime.
Good call, Fluff. Yeah, David Wise is a master of his craft, I have to say. The amount of, I don't know, what he does with less is truly impressive, I have to say. But anyway, take the left course here. You can hit that guy if you want, but just in that case, maybe accept that you're going to take some damage and just keep going. Don't let that screen crush you to death. Grab yourself the extinguisher here, and then put out the fire here in the warp statue. Move up here and grab the fly swatter. This will be very necessary for one of the toughest rooms in the entire game, which is coming up. Got Otto's spray can, he's going to want that. A lot of items which just, characters just need before they'll let you pass. And they're just one screen away, essentially. Yeah, this is a tough screen right here. I always just accept I'm going to lose a life, but I like to throw the fly swatter, which works a lot like the hammer, kind of north and south while we're trying to avoid that door. Thankfully, it keeps progress of the enemies that you've killed. And actually did us a little favor, I think. Took out a couple extra ones while we were gone, but clear out all those. Gotta kill them all before that door will open. Mostly just avoid the football player's legs. Got the rubber duck here, though, another item which we need to turn in just to carry on here. Yeah, thankfully, we don't need to take down the football player legs. Give him his rubber duck and quickly exit this area. More bugs, but just grab the key. Don't waste time, you don't need to take these down. This time we're going to go to the left. Quickly open that door. It's very Battletoads right here. You can feel the Rare in terms of difficulty here. You can't stop off, grab this one key, and just keep moving. Otherwise, you'll get crushed. Okay, there's not a second to waste in those little stretches right there. Some of those hallways that are moving. If you hesitate, you will get crushed and lose a life right there, so. By the way, all these secondary items that we've been picking up here, like the fly swatter, every time you hit select, they'll drop. You can't cycle through them. It's basically whatever you picked up last is what you're going to be ready to pull out next, which is just kind of annoying, but anyway. Continuing on, once again, do not hesitate, cut to the right, and just keep walking. Ignore the boxes. Immediately head into this warp right here and swing down here to pick up this ring. Going pretty well, avoiding most of the, and give Lydia the ring. Always thought that was kind of strange. Get the key, pick up the glasses, and quickly head through this door up here. Lucking out with some of the movement patterns of the enemies. And go into the nice effing model right there, if you get the reference. And you know what? I'm happy to see just a regular kind of platforming stretch of this game. Hold down and hit A to drop down those platforms there. Just remember, you need to scroll that screen with you before you can move. Not as dangerous when you're moving up, but certainly when you're moving down. You can pop in these doors to grab yourself some more scares if you need to. There's some places to top off your health and farm for some more help vouchers. Gotta stop in here to get ourselves some chalk so we can carry on, but it's pretty linear. So while we're doing this, let's throw it back to Fluff for some more Fluff facts, this time about the movie Beetlejuice itself.
As we normally do with games based on movies, I'm going to share some interesting facts about Beetlejuice the movie. One not so well-known fact was that the original script was a lot darker than the final film ended up being, with Beetlejuice existing as a winged demon and resembling a short Middle Eastern man in his human form, and his plan for the deets featured assault and murder. The first cut of the film also featured a much darker ending for Beetlejuice himself before his character proved to be a hit with test audiences, so he was given a happier ending. Speaking of the titular character, you'll likely be scratching your head to hear that director Tim Burton initially wanted 63-year-old at the time Sammy Davis Jr. to play the main role before a producer pitched Michael Keaton, a professional marriage which proved very successful as Keaton would star in Burton's subsequent Batman and Batman Returns. Keaton immediately accepted the role after meeting Burton, but the same can't be said for the laundry list of young actresses who were offered the role of Lydia Deetz, including Lori Loughlin, Sarah Jessica Parker, Brooke Shields, Molly Ringwald, and Jennifer Connelly. Burton gave the part to Winona Ryder finally after he saw her in the teen drama comedy Lucas. Although it took 36 years to make a sequel was in the works back in 1990. Titled Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian, the script saw the Deetz family relocating to Hawaii to develop a vacation resort. When it's discovered that the resort is being constructed on an ancient burial ground, Beetlejuice was to accidentally awaken their spirits and cause his signature mayhem. Burton and Keaton were both busy in the early 90s with Batman, so the idea got shelved. And while sequels were pitched again and again in the decades since the original film was released, it wasn't until 2024 that a proper sequel with much of the original cast was released, and it caused us to do a class on this mostly crappy game.
Yeah, mostly crappy is a good way of putting it. Thank you very much, Fluff. Certainly not of the same caliber as other rare titles. You know, we like to have fun with Battletoads and its difficulty, but that's still a good game. You know, there's a difference there, but I digress. Let's throw it back to Gary a little bit early for tips on the next boss.
Boss beaters.
Alright, a nondescript wizard. You're gonna keep a little distance between yourself and the boss to avoid the lightning he shoots out, but you can still get those shots in. Fire at the head of the wizard to do damage, and once again, we're knocking him back. Hit him into that right wall to take him down.
Thank you very much, Gary, as we are headed, unfortunately, back into more of the attic here. But we got, in this case, Adam, what a loser. We got his glasses in that last room, so he's happy. And take the middle teleport right there. Into the middle again. And then stop off, get yourself a couple more bottles. And you can see that door slowly, menacingly chasing us around. Threatening to send us to Saturn, and actually, we're coming out of the stretch eventually, so I think if we don't do it now, we might not see it. So in the interest of giving you the full experience, let's let it send us to Saturn, where we'll take on the Sandworm with tips from Gary. Gary, what do you got?
Boss beaters.
Alright, the Sandworm. Make sure you are well stocked on ogre scares. Have about 3 or 4 of them at least. They'll include one, generally speaking, when you get over to the right, or some scary. But get on that third from the left platform and just kind of alternate back and forth, left and right sides, to get that sandworm where you want it. And get those shots off at the head, whether you're on the inside or the outside, as the case may be, like we show right here. But that's the key to taking out the sandworm. Just make sure you get the right rhythm and figure out his pattern as he's moving more and more over to the left, and then you can just reset by going over to the right and reset his patterns and just anticipate where he's going to be, get those shots in, and take him down.
Good call, Gary. Yeah, you can see it's not too difficult as long as you get into a nice rhythm. It's a good opportunity to point out, give yourself an extra second for that boss to explode and disappear before you try running into him right there. Alright, so now let's actually go the way we're meant to go in this room. Take this teleport right here and then go to the far left when it spits you out. And we'll open a door. We'll go through this one here, this is linear, and go through a door to get ourselves the key right here. So just send us right back to where we were. This will send us back down to the bottom right. So this time we're going to take the middle one here, and then the right one, and linear shot right here. Not interested in going back to Saturn again, so let's just do a little dance around that, and then open this door with your key. And there you go, we got the chalk so that we can actually escape, which we picked up in that building. And here we are on the final stage now, which is just some platforming. The top-down stuff is behind us. Got these... Yeah, watch the floor right here. Got to get all the tiles here, the number tiles. And it's such a disappointing final stretch here, I have to say. There's no final boss or anything. Bosses are behind us. Watch out for this little winched creature here, which is flying back and forth. You can bait them to get out of the area you want them in. If they're standing in your way or hanging in your way, just back up a little bit, get them out of position, and then go while the opening is there. Yeah, hopefully you have lots of those weak Medusa heads, those scares, so you just keep popping them on. As soon as you get to 2 Beetlejuices, do a little shallow jump there. This is set up to be kind of linear, but this is more the way that I go right here. You can see we got slapped around a little bit there. This is our final Medusa head, I think. Got a few more scares in the tank. Again, there's no boss to worry about, so don't have to worry about firepower at this stage in the game. Here's that 5. I think we're just looking for 6 now. Use Birdman to give yourself a little more lift for some of these jumps. Just don't want to miss any of these cards. And right above us here on the left, you can jump on these bugs. There's 6. Alright, now that you've got all the tiles, all the cards, just time this jump right here. Go over to the top right. And then there's the exit, and that's just the end of the game. As I said, very anticlimactic. Doing a Nixon there or something. It's the showman in me, you know. You know, when Michael Keaton does it, it's charming, but it's just kind of annoying without the voice. You know, just on paper, on screen reading. I can't help it. I make it look too easy. Well, that's what we certainly aim for here on Video Games 101. Hopefully this helped you out. If you do decide to pick this game up in honor of the movie, either of the movies now, there you go. Terrible ending. Just a ghost boasting with no self-awareness. But that's our time this week. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to enroll in this class. We do one of these classes every single week in the same spot. We'd love to have you enrolled. Click that like button too if you don't mind. Really does help us out to make future classes for you. And leave a comment. Have you played this game, and are you more forgiving than I am when it comes to this one? As Fluff said, just feels like a bit of a rare misstep for Rare. But thank you so much for watching. Big thanks to all my TAs. We'll see you next week in the same spot for next week's class, right here on Video Games 101. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment on this video, and click subscribe if you haven't already, as this seriously helps me to keep making great content for you. And check the description of this video to see what song is playing right now.